All right, here we go. Lesson one, year unit lesson planning in oh, forget it. All right, here we go. Lesson one, year unit lesson planning in ELA. Wow, back to doing some of these crazy recordings. Brings back memories of a lot of time spent in my little office here talking to my computer. Anyways, here we go. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about specifically about year and unit planning today, and then in lesson two, then I'll start talking about more directly about lesson planning. So how I've forgotten how to control. There we go. That's how I control this. Got it. It's like riding a bike. It all comes back. So my goal for you today is for you to start the journey of constructing plans from macro to micro with knowledge of the intricacies of elementary literacy and language so that you can be an amazing and inspiring language arts teacher. Okay, so this is one of my hopes for you, that by the end of this course, you'll be able to really plan all the way from those grandiose year plans all the way down to the minutiae of what are we doing in the next 2 minutes. Okay, you'll refine this. Your planning abilities will get better the more that you plan. So don't panic if at the beginning it takes you a long time and it feels like you don't have any creative ideas. All those things you will develop in time. And again, don't panic. If it seems overwhelming, you will get better at it in there. So I want you to think about what if we had just gone to Cyprus without doing any kind of backwards design? So thinking about the end goal that we wanted to get you to. So if we had not done any backwards design thinking beforehand or connecting to program goals. So what if we just gone to Cyprus without doing backwards design or connecting to program goals? So this was our picture from last year, and I wanted to include it because Christy was with us last year, and it's definitely these are sort of team goals here. Okay, so we probably, got ahead of myself there. Let's go back one. We probably would have still had a lot of fun out at Cyprus, but it wouldn't have been focused on any particular learning, right? Which is ultimately our job as teachers, to be focusing our learning. So now, how do you plan for ELA? Okay, so over the next few weeks in all of your classes, you're going to focus on how to plan for your that particular subject area, as well as some cross-curricular planning. So I am going to be focusing on year planning, but know that what you learn about ELA, year planning, you can use in math and science and social. So Lauralee and Jason are going to focus on unit planning, and so take what they are going to teach you about unit planning and incorporate it into ELA. So we're trying to streamline your program so that you get all the areas of planning, but not necessarily in every subject. So all of us are going to dive into lesson planning, as there are some really specifics to teach in each area. But again, you can take what you're learning in my class and apply it to a lesson plan in Lauralee's class or Colleen's class or Christy's class, because we all work together on that lesson plan template. Okay, so hopefully you don't look like this guy when you're starting to plan for ELA. So let's talk about how do you plan. So one of my favorite planning stages is the year plan. And I don't know if it's just a geek thing in me, but I love the idea of knowing the whole year and knowing kind of where my units are, where I'm going, but always with that sense that there's flexibility. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about year planning and these 4 questions. So what's the purpose of year planning? Basically, it gives you a sense of direction. It makes sure that you fulfill those curricular objectives because you have accounted for them. You've figured out how you're going to fulfill them. And usually some kind of year plan is required. right? Some principals will ask for year plans by the end of September. Some principals won't ask for year plans ever. But it doesn't, I think even if you're not asked by the principal to hand them in, it's such a good idea to plan, because then you have your, how many of you have been in a class where the teacher spends, the first 7 months on one unit and then slams in 6 units at the end in 3 months, right? So that's where your year plan makes sure that you are spending the right amount of time on each unit. Okay, so what are some of the considerations that you need to take into account when you are creating a year plan? So first of all, you have to look at student ability and level. So what can they do? Are they all sort of super keen readers, and can they actually really handle grade level reading? It's going to be a little difficult when you first start because you don't know the kids. But if you stay at a school for a while, you kind of get a sense of where those kids are going to be at when you're creating a year plan. What you also want to do is consider authentic experiences, readers and writers. How can we incorporate authentic experiences where they actually have an audience for their work, or they're actually they're not just doing a worksheet to do a worksheet, but there's some real purpose behind why they are doing that particular work. You also want to think about your interests and your expertise. So if you are like totally into Greek mythology, you probably should do a unit on Greek mythology, because how will you teach it if you're super into it? Right? You'll be like, woo, look at the Greek mythology. Look what Zeus is doing, and he's throwing people into the air. And right? And so the kids will catch your excitement and passion. So don't discredit your own interests and expertise when you're thinking about your planning. Again, you want to think about authentic interdisciplinary activities, and we're hopefully going to give you a look at some of those activities. So think about Cyprus. Think about when we get to Medelta, think about how this could be how that could be an authentic interdisciplinary activity. And ultimately, you have to consider the Alberta Education Program of Studies. That's where we get all of our objectives from. That's where we get what we're supposed to be teaching. Okay, let's go on to the third one, onto content. So content, what should be included in our year plan document? Basically, you have to have all your subject outcomes. So all of your ELA outcomes if you're working on an ELA year plan, all of your math outcomes if you're working on a math ELA. You can't pick and choose the ones you want. You have to cover all of them, okay? And you want all subject outcomes from other subjects if you're doing an integrated project. So if you're doing an integrated project that involves art and science, then you have to have those program objectives as well. Units or integrated projects or daily work, or how you're actually going to accomplish fulfilling those curricular goals. So that's what you want. So you want the units, you want integrated projects, you want daily work, you want that listed, but very on a very general level. The unit plan and the lesson plan will get more into the minutia, but the year planning is really quite general. You want to put the actual days of instruction. So you want to say between October 10th and October 30th, we're going to do this, and then write down how many actual instructional days. So you actually have 14 school days between October 10th and October 30th. So you want to have the actual date and then the number of instructional days. Ultimately, you will fill in an assessment portion as well on a year plan, but we're going to focus on that next year. So when you look at our year plan, you'll see that it's grayed out. The assessment portion is grayed out. We want you to know that ultimately you are responsible to figure out how you're going to assess each of these objectives. But right now, we don't want that on your plate. We just want you to worry about units and daily plans and things like that connected to objectives. And then any references that you've used to create the lesson plan, the year plan. So if you've used the program of study, if you've used like a pre-made kit, if you've used any books or websites, that's where you put it. And again, this is so you can find it and reference it. If you ever go, oh, I'd really like to go back and see that reference. This is not just to be nasty and make you write down a whole bunch of things. It's so that if you use this year plan, you actually can find all of those resources. There's nothing worse than going, oh, I remember this great resource, but then you haven't written enough information down, like the address or the author or the title of the page. Okay. And finally, the last question is format. Now, there are lots of different formats that you can use for your year plan, but I'm going to just introduce one to you so that you don't get lost in the actual format. What I really want you to do is focus on the content of the format. So you can use circles, you can use mind map kind of things. The one I'm going to introduce to you is very linear. So if you're like, I'm not a linear thinker, try this one and then look around get the concept of the year planning and then look around for a different template. Okay, so those are things that you want to be thinking about when you start your year plan. Okay, here we go. Let's look at, and we did have a little bit of a chance to look at these documents, but this is the K-12 program of studies. So this is the document that we looked at on the first day of class. So if you want to go to this link now, you could stop me and go to the link. However, what I want to do is I want to go to, oh yeah, I'm not in, hang on here. I'm not in that mode, so I have to go here. Bear with me. Okay, so as you remember from when I chatted with you, the Alberta Program of Studies for ELA, if you use the actual document, it's kind of a mess because it's hard to find your particular grade outcomes. Learn Alberta gives you the particular grade outcomes. So if you want to look at grade 4, here are all of those outcomes. And then it actually goes down into, do you want to look at general outcome number 3? Boom, there's general outcome number 3. So it's a very usable 21st century kind of document in there. Okay, so I just want you to know that that is at your fingertips. When I would use that link for your year planning, I think will really help you keep everything organized here. Okay, now I also alluded to the illustrated examples for ELA. So I showed you the big fat document where you could actually start. It would give examples of what the objectives might look like. So here, I won't go through all of these links, but here are the links. So this has examples from K to 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you're welcome to stop me right now if you want and go and look at those links just to familiarize yourself with these documents as they are your guiding documents. Also, what I would do before you go much farther into year planning, because I'm going to jump into kind of what that looks like pretty quick here, I want you to just brainstorm some ELA units through which you can fulfill ELA curricular outcomes for your practicum grade. Okay, so I want you to put in place here the essence of the Spark Creativity Betsy Potash podcast, The Power of Imperfect Action, right? So it may not be perfect. You might go, oh, actually that unit, I'm teaching grade 2, but actually that unit is a grade 4 unit. You have to jump in. You have to start somewhere. So brainstorm some possible units that you think you could do and could incorporate in a year plan. So think about Rod and Sky Science, right? That could be a whole ELA unit looking at Greek mythology. I also know where you're at in your planning. So I know that this is going to be sort of your first stab at this level of planning. So there's a bit of grace and I'm hoping that that you can start to really see the power of this type of long range planning in here. Okay, so I want you to, when you're thinking about these ELA units, is think about your practicum. So even ask your practicum teacher. Oh, actually, I have it down there. Think about your practicums that you've already been in. Did you see somebody doing a poetry slam unit? Did you see somebody doing a podcast unit? Did you see somebody using a series like a Fontes and Pinnell or Jolly Phonics? Like, did you, okay, so start to think about, did you see anything out there? What was your own, bring up your own experience. Do you remember doing Where the Red Fern Grows as a novel study? Look what Terry did with us, novel in 20 minutes. You know, those are the kind of things, like you're thinking units that maybe are like 3 to 4 days, maybe up to 18 to 20 days. Okay, so just throw some ideas down. Don't judge them, just throw them down. Feel free to talk to your partner teacher and say, hey, what units are you doing this year? And just grab those ideas. Okay, and say, you know, how long do you think we could do a novel study for in grade 5? Like, how long could I keep them interested in this particular book, like The Giver or something like that? Okay, and then do a little research. You have spent 2 to 3, at least 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 years in university. You can research, put it out there, find, Google some things, look around, use your research skills that you have honed over the last couple of years. Okay, so there you go. So that's what I want you to do, is I want you to actually have some ideas bring them into class, because we're going to be using those in class. Okay, here we go. Nope, that will not help me. Okay, so also when you're talking about year planning, is you should be thinking about your school mandate and overall goals of the school. So think about your practicum placements. And so say you're at River Heights, and it's, so I pulled these off of each of these schools' websites. So this is kind of their mission statement. So River Heights is a student-centered integrated learning, critical and creating thinking skills, and student independence and interdependence, and safe and caring environment. Those are their key goals. Crestwood is a child-centered approach, positive learning environment, inclusion of parents and families, focus on academic subjects and achievement. St. Louis is through a safe and caring Catholic environment where children are accepted, affirmed, and understood. We will empower our students to express themselves fully. So can you see how, if you are at River Heights, your year plan might look different than if you were at Crestwood, than if you were at St. Louis, because of the mandate of the school and the focus of the school and how and what they really want you to focus on in your teaching. Okay, so keep that in mind, especially since you now know where your practicum is. Okay, what I would do is I would suggest that you go and listen to Assignment 1 video, because that's the year plan assignment, and it might just give you a little bit more information on year plan. Okay. If you can, contact your grade group colleagues to begin working on Assignment 1, and you're welcome to go and use Collaborate on the 3103 Blackboard site. You can meet up with your colleagues there. We all now know how to do that. One of the perks of a COVID. Start to work through your Alberta Education curricular objectives for your practicum grade. Jot down units specific for your practicum grade on sticky notes or small scrap paper that you can manipulate, not on big pieces, and bring those for next class, because we're going to spend some time just moving some things around. Jot down daily work or programs on your grade or sticky note, or on scrap paper, so that we can start to sort of amass a year plan. Okay. Hang on here.